What's up, everybody? It's Christine. This is take 2 of Quarantine with Christine. And yesterday we started with Becky Cox, and it was amazing. So pretty much, if you're tuning in, the point of this, hi Mish, is just to connect and to have thoughtful conversations together while we're all trapped in our homes. Hi Lauren. Hi Cheyenne. I just wanted to start something on the internet where we could celebrate the humanity in all of us. So the point of this show is to laugh together, to learn together, and to lift each other up. So really what I would want this to feel like, what I hope this feels like, is like one big conversation with everybody. And so while we're doing this tonight, we have an amazing friend of mine. Her name is Katie Matsumoto, and she just joined, but we're going to go live together in just a second. But here's the deal. I want it to feel like a conversation between all of us. So as we're talking, if you have thoughts, share your thoughts. If you have more questions, ask more questions, and then interact with our thoughts and each other's thoughts. That's what I really hope for. And so without further ado, I'm going to invite Katie on because she's thebomb.com. And so you're about to meet her in 1 second. Katie is a student pastor in California, and we got to meet a couple years ago. And so hi, Chris. Hi, Jess. Hi, Lissa. Oh, look at her. There she is.
Hi.
With incomparably cool hair. How do you do it?
Thanks. Lots of hairspray, just like the 80s.
Wow. I wasn't alive then, so I wouldn't know. just throwing that out there.
I just made it. I made it by like 2.5
Hi,
months.
Melissa. Oh, nice. So proud of you. Okay, why don't you just real quick tell us who you are, what you do, where you live, not like your address, but like, general vicinity.
My name's Katie, and I'm a youth pastor at West Valley Christian Church in the Los Angeles area. So I'm in Southern California. I got to meet Christine a couple years ago through CIY and just other mutual friends, and it's been awesome. She's pretty awesome. So this is going to be fun, and I'm super excited because I love just talking with Christine and hearing her thoughts, and she asks great questions, and so I'm about it. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it too. I'm stoked. Okay, so tell me just a little bit, how has COVID-19 stuff been in California? Because I live in Arizona, and I feel like we were like a few days behind you, kind of in policies that were dropping and closures and stuff, but how's it been in the LA area?
Yeah, so a lot happened last Thursday, which, oh gosh, was a week ago. That's weird.
Yeah.
I'm losing track of days. So the governor set mandates, and then the mayor of LA set mandates also on Thursday last week. So a lot has changed. Los Angeles has not been shut down yet, like some other counties around us, like Orange County is all non-essential.
Okay.
Work is being put on, or you have to work from home. And so restaurants, bars, gathering places, entertainment places are closed, but there's still drive-through, carry-out, delivery options. San Francisco has a shelter-in-place mandate right now, and so we're not there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're there by the end of the week.
You think so?
Things are escalating quickly. I'm actually surprised that we haven't gotten that yet, but but I'm open. I mean, that gives us a little bit more freedom. But sometimes people abuse freedom, so maybe we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's true. My sisters live in San Francisco and New York City, and so it's been interesting trying to keep up with them and seeing what's going down and those are giant metropolitan areas. So I'm surprised that LA is still like so fully functioning in so many ways.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think this idea of shutting down LA is hard, but if you can shut down San Francisco or New York, then so I am surprised too. We got the mandate to close restaurants and stuff like that before Orange County did, but then Orange County just shut down all at once. Sure. So we'll see. We'll see what the next 72 hours.
I feel like every day, like a million things are changing. So
yeah.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Caleb. Hi, Emma, Grace, and Laura, and Megan Bagnall. What's up? So can you talk to me about how this has kind of affected your life and work? You're a student pastor and living in Southern California. So tell me what's changed.
Yes. So we made the call late last week to not have weekend services like every church, like so much had changed
Right.
within 24 hours that we did an online service. And so our student ministry just has a really fun, casual, unstructured hangout on Sunday mornings. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just sent out encouragement, and then we connected last night, middle school and Tuesday night high school, like many youth groups did, over Zoom or video chat,
Sure.
which was really, really awesome. And so there's a lot that's been going on with like our kids ministry sending things home, but really like my encouragement is for parents this week, and just to like figure out the week as everyone's home. I
Sure.
know
Yeah.
students are figuring out online school, are bored out of their mind, and just trying to figure this out. So this
Yeah.
week said, hey, let's just take a breath and figure it out. And next week, just want to send a little bit more resources home, but not to overwhelm. And this
Yeah.
is a
So,
huge change for everyone right now.
hmm just a
So
quick clarification. Do you guys do Wednesday night programming regularly? And so you just switched
yes.
what you were doing Wednesdays to Zoom, essentially?
Yes. So we usually have our student services. Tuesday night is high school, Wednesday night is middle
Okay.
school. And so instead of, I didn't even send out curriculum. This week was hey, just connect and hang out and see each other face to face. And it was awesome.
Yeah, we
So
did Zoom last night
yes.
too for our regular
Hmm.
small groups, and we did a soft launch, and it was working great. Like, kids loved it. We even had a kid say, I like this better than our regular small group, which I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't really know how to take that, but I'll take it.
Yeah. So I had a student who hasn't been in quite a long time showed up on Zoom, which was awesome. And I've had multiple different groups, one from a high school group and one from a middle school group, say, I think it was more real and honest. Like people were more open
Yeah,
for whatever reason
that was the
over
same
a
for us.
screen. And I had a couple parents text me like, this is so cool. Like I can hear my kid in the other room. And actually her husband's a small group leader, and her daughter's in a small group. So she's like, I hear one small group on this side and one on the other side. My house is so loud, but it's so awesome. So thanks for that text, Rachel. Which is so cool. That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
I love that. So
So
yeah.
let's just like real quick do some nuts and bolts of some like practical youth ministry stuff. Lauren says, "What a cool opportunity in the midst of the heavy and the cray." I agree. I
Yes.
was gonna ask you, like while we're watching all these shifts, I know for me, I'm noticing like some of the things that are really hard, and there are things that have become like an amazing opportunity. Have you noticed that?
Hmm.
Like things are like,
Yes.
actually, this isn't so bad. Like in some areas, this is kind of a win, and then sometimes
Hmm.
you're like, holy cow, like Jesus, please come back.
Oh, yes. And I think that's with every situation, not just in student ministry, but um, this is such a cool opportunity in so many ways, but it also makes us appreciate the norm,
Sure.
as this is now our norm and the norm has shifted. I just saw actually some notes from an old Catalyst conference that I had gone to, and Craig Rochelle talked about innovation and creativity, and
Hmm.
how like he was actually talking about low budget at in some aspect. That's like this was 3 or 4 years ago, but I just thought like this is such a time for innovation and creativity
Yeah.
and readjusting. And there's so many amazing youth organizations that are out there that are helping to resource everyone. And so I super appreciate. I've gotten
Yeah.
resources from Orange and from DYM, Dental Youth Ministry, CIY, and that's been really awesome, and super
All you
appreciate.
guys should sponsor Katie Matsumoto. That's what that was, an ad.
No, just like real talk, like
Yeah,
so
no, for real.
cool.
They've been so great all over.
And even like Facebook groups, like there's so many youth pastors that are just sharing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so this has been a shift in student ministry, but it's also really cool because this is where students are. They're
Yeah,
online, they're on
absolutely.
their phones. Um, and so, yeah, has just opened up different thoughts too. Like I have a student who goes back and forth to a parent's house every other week. And so she only comes every other week to youth group. And we're like, hey, what if you Zoom in for our small group? Like that would be really cool
Yeah.
when things get back to
Yeah.
usual meetings and gatherings and stuff. And so, yeah, it's just opened up some really cool doors and opportunities for us to think creatively.
Yeah, those of you out there that are watching that are in student ministry, whether you're a student pastor or you're a volunteer, you guys should totally drop comments of things you guys are trying or apps you're on right now that are really working for you, because Katie and I would love to learn more too. I sat in
Yes.
a Zoom meeting with like 80 other pastors through CIY earlier this week, and it was so cool just listening to everybody's ideas and just like
Mm-hmm.
just I think I have this deep belief that Christians should be the most innovative and creative thinkers. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
we're not most of the time, but I do think we should be propelling culture forward. And so I hope this is a time like where you see people in the church like really rising up. And I think I have like a secret salty side of me, not so secret, that I'm like, why are we always just copying what everybody else is doing? It's like even this past weekend, I'm like, you saw online churches or people streamed their
Mm-hmm.
services online, or they like built this like living room set on stage, and everyone that like streamed their site was like, oh my gosh, we got to build living rooms. And I'm like, come on guys, like we're better than that, but
Yes.
apparently we're not. So anyway, rant over on
I
that.
also think, can I say something about that? I think
Yes.
it's really overwhelming. So yesterday, like I didn't check any website. I didn't go on any Facebook group. I like there's so many ideas out there right now for student ministry in particular, that I just want to like give permission and have given myself permission to not do it all. In fact, like that's why I said this week was like, let's just connect. I'm not going to put out Instagram games right now. We're not going to do all these really cool things online, but there's so many other things that are changing right now. And so just giving myself permission, to do it one step at a time. And to be honest, it's probably like we're going to be here for a little bit. Like this isn't just like a 2-week thing. And so like pace yourself. And one of the things I learned in a spiritual disciplines class was do as you can, not as you can't. And so the idea was like, instead of trying to read the Bible for an hour every day, like, that's not realistic. 10 minutes every day is better than nothing. And so even for this, like texting a couple of students a day is better than trying to reinvent your entire youth ministry in a way that you can't. And so just like, do you like, what are your strengths, and like how can you just connect and be a youth pastor and care for people? Like that's really what we're here for, to be the church and
Donna agrees.
People. And so yeah, I think there's just so much out there right now, which is amazing. Like thank you internet for content that's like coming out of our ears, but just it's okay to just do one thing at a time.
Hey Becky. Yeah, and Crystal and Ashlyn. Hey, so I mean, I think on top of that, so real short, and then we'll move to our second topic of the night. I think like too, we can't miss the Spirit of God in this, I think it's such a temptation to even rely on ourselves and what we think and look on the internet and, I think all those things. It's okay. You were born in the 80s, so it's hard. Sorry. Anyway, but I think that there is so much to, I think, listening and pausing, and not just for yourself personally, but also just say like, man, Lord, what do you want from me and for me and for our students, instead of just trying to play keep up or just trying to pull from, well, what can I do, and still remembering to rely on the Spirit's strength. Oh, look, someone who loves you is
and
on.
I think there's this like, there's been posts on Facebook communities or whatever, like, do you feel like youth pastors, you're working more right now than you did before? But I think there's this fine balance of like we're not programming, we're not meeting with students face to face. And so we have to be more innovative, and yet we also have time to pause, which is like, what a cool thing.
Absolutely.
That like God has worked the Sabbath into we should be working that into the daily rhythms or our weekly rhythms, and we don't. And God just like, hey, you know what? Everything's
COVID-19. Here we go.
As 2020, you thought this was going to be different. Well, this is what I want. And I mean, I'm not making a theological statement about what God's doing here, but I do think that we need to just pause and embrace this like change and shift. And I know it's hard, and there's a lot of like people are going home, and sometimes home is not a safe place for people right now, but but God is always a safe place. And so how can we just lean into that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. So that like, it's hard, and I feel busy, and like my mind's on 100 things at once, like more than usual, and yet like there's still this moment to pause and like settle in a little bit right now, because right now everything is projected for 2 weeks, but who knows. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think the CDC said that they are recommending like 8 weeks, so we'll see what happens. Okay, let's take a really sharp turn.
hey, let's do it. Let's go.
Let's just take. So we talked student ministry, guys. If you have more things you guys want to say about student ministry, like again, this conversation is fair game for everybody. Like you can write your thoughts, you can ask more questions, but seriously, we're down. But I'm gonna read some of the questions that people asked earlier.
Let's do it.
And so this one is from Katie, and she said, not you, Katie, another Katie. And she asked if there are any negative remarks or actions towards you since all of this coronavirus began. So has that happened to you since all this COVID stuff?
Yeah. So personally, no. I have not had that, but I know my students have heard racist remarks at school, both in middle school and high school, and people are like, oh yeah, people are making jokes or comments about that. I am a little bit more aware. I mean, everyone's aware right now, but I was a lot more aware of like sneezing or coughing in public, like before this really became like everyone, like a few weeks ago. And just seeing a lot of it online has been really heartbreaking. And so I have not experienced it as much, but I had shared with you earlier, like I was worried really more for my grandparents, who are more traditionally Asian, and they're older, and just I was worried about that, like somebody saying something rude to them. Thankfully, they've self-isolated and are being wise about this. And so actually that has brought me peace on a lot of levels. One, for their health, and two, just for their emotional health and protection. Yeah. Like I'm really glad that they're not going out right now.
Do they live in LA or do they live somewhere else?
Yeah, they live right here.
Okay, cool.
They live 5 minutes away from me. So my grandparents, and maybe this is helpful to know too. So I'm fourth generation. My mom's side is from Hawaii. My dad's side is from California. Just a quick throwback history lesson. My dad's parents met in the internment camps during the war. And so there's just a lot that has happened within United States history with that. But silver lining, I'm thankful. Otherwise, my dad and his 6 siblings wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here. And so there's just been a lot of that already. And so I think there's a little bit of a hesitation a little bit, but I'm fourth generation. And
fourth generation what? Clarify for the people.
Japanese. I'm Japanese. My last name is Matsumoto, which is a very common Japanese name.
It's
and
epic.
So and it's pretty, there's a castle. It's pretty awesome.
That's
Matsumoto Castle. And so so I feel very I don't feel like I'm a traditional strong culturally Asian Japanese, but there are some really important parts of my family and heritage that I very much value.
Yeah, I don't think I technically classify as first generation, even though I was born in Hong Kong and then we immigrated to the States when I was almost 4. But I think because of how young I am, I'm technically not considered first generation. But it's been interesting because for me, it's not been like, there's no one that's been like, I think, intentionally racist, but they've been racist in terms of just jokes of like, oh, coronavirus, like when I walk in the room. And that's been like the last couple of weeks. And I think for me, it's just been, I was telling one of my friends the other day, I'm like, the comments that have been made towards me are like annoying and inappropriate, but like they're not earth shattering, you know, for me personally. And I think that like, and they're also not as extreme as what some other Asian people are experiencing in our country right now. I think you told me there have been like straight up attacks in San Francisco and and some violence, like, and all of that just based on, you know, the way we look and the color of our skin and all that stuff. But like, I think for me, it's been eye-opening of like the massive privilege I have compared to so many other Asians in our country. And really but the reason why is because like we meet the white standard in a lot of ways, you know, like we don't have accents. We've grown up here. We know the lay of the land. We both we work at pretty white churches. And so there's so much of that I think contributes to, you know, like we're not going to be the person that they really come for.
Right.
But I think at the same time, that doesn't lessen the injustice of it.
Right. Right. And just because it's not directed at us doesn't mean it's not happening.
Absolutely.
Like it's very much happening all over the country. And you had asked in Southern California, so it's very diverse here.
Right.
I live in the San Fernando Valley. It's very diverse. And but I wonder, like, I feel for, like, I saw an older lady, an Asian lady that goes to my church. We just ran between each other in the parking lot. And I just, like, my heart went out to her a little bit, just with a little bit of hesitation and worry of what she would encounter walking into Costco. And so, yeah, I think it's just raised my awareness of things that I don't usually think about. And so, yeah, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah, and for, like, I don't know if everyone on here knows, like, what we're even talking about with, like, the white standard and stuff, but it's just this idea that there is a culture that's set by white people that I think when you're a person of color, you know, you have to aspire to or bend to in order to fit in any way, but still kind of knowing, like, at the end of the day, you don't, because you look different. And I think always the best example I can give is, like, when I would go to the grocery store with my mom, you know, she has a Chinese accent, and she's also a math whiz, and I break all the stereotypes because I'm terrible at math. And so she'll, like, be talking through all the items, and in her accent, like, the cashier will talk to her like she's so dumb. And I've noticed that, like, if I don't say anything and I just stand there silently, they will keep talking to her like she's super dumb. But the minute I open my mouth and I start talking and there's no accent, I've literally seen people straighten their backs and speak to me with respect. And I'm like, again, like, what's the difference between an accent? You know, you don't know a person's intellect or abilities or social standing from an accent, but there's something to our society, I think, especially in our country, that's like a big deal, unfortunately. Let's jump into this question. I love the precursor in this question. This is from Hannah. She says, well, I'm just going to jump right in. What are your thoughts about the president or other members of the government referring to the coronavirus as the Wuhan virus or Chinese virus or Wuhan flu, etc.?
I have lots of thoughts.
Let's go.
So I had seen, so I got a Twitter just like 3 days ago to like get news updates, and I just happened to see something about that. But somebody had commented, and I don't remember who, but I stand, like, people are like, well, it's from China, so what does that matter? And the White House has defended that, and Trump has defended that, etc. But I would just say, like, one of the comments said, whether it's the president or any leader of such standing, like the president of the United States allegedly is one of the most powerful person in the world, but regardless of your standing, if you have any form of influence, our language is so important, and it shifts how people think about things, and that whether it's intended to or not, creates fear and racism. And they're saying, well, it's not the Chinese people, it's just from China, the region. Well, that doesn't matter. You can clarify that all you want, and people are still going to associate that with whatever. And you and I had joked about, but also there were comments about, like, that puts every Asian American in danger because people can't tell the difference.
I know. You know, my favorite, and by favorite, I mean least favorite question that I get from people all the time is, what are you?
Or where are you from? I say, I'm from LA.
I know, I'm like, New Hampshire? They're like, oh, I've traveled to Thailand once. I'm like, great, I'm Chinese, so that's cool.
I haven't. Yeah.
So that's awesome. If there are any other Asian people on this thread right now, let me know. Like, let us know. Like, what are your guys' thoughts? But yeah, like, I what other thoughts do you have about the Chinese flu?
Yeah, I think, okay, so first of all, viruses can come from anywhere. And we don't even know. And this is so out of our control, and it wasn't, I don't know. I think we just really need to be careful, and that's just, it's not fair to put blame, intentional or not, on an entire people group. And plus, if you can't tell who's Chinese or not, let's just expand that to every Asian ever, and that's, like, I don't even know, a lot of our population.
Also, these comments that are coming in are amazing. Mackenzie is Asian, and she says, I love that question.
Yeah, and it like it really like I just saw it yesterday and it made my heart break.
Yeah.
And politics aside, I don't care if you're the president of the United States or a teenager in my youth ministry or whoever. Like I think language like that and stereotypes and like extreme generalizations, like you and I talked about, like shows immaturity and
Hmm.
I think I said basic, but yes, like just limited thinking and it's naive and yeah, it shows a lack of intelligence when we are stereotyping and super generalizing everything like that. And so, like, for us to pause and just think through, I also think it's really selfish because if we were to pause and think through, well, what would someone else think if they heard that? Then hopefully we would not use language like that. And so I know people have joked about it and whether or not you have intended to, like, if you're saying that, then can I just tell you don't say those
Yeah.
things. And you might think it's
Preach that.
funny or punny or whatever it is, like, okay, like this is not the time for that. Like this is a time to care for people and to love people well. And how are we doing that if we're just isolating them more? Like there's already this fear, I think, in general, or I said hesitation, maybe not a fear, but a hesitation already out there. And so let's not promote that. Like we have a
Absolutely.
chance to be a shift in that and to educate lovingly people who are making jokes without thinking. It's just thoughtless. And so let's be
Absolutely.
intentional and think about what we're saying.
Yeah. And I think just like when people make comments like that, they're forgetting that it affects people's lives in a real way. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about part of what inspired me to think we should have this conversation during these random shows that I'm doing now are like, my sister and I, we were sitting in this brand new Chinese establishment on Saturday night, and it's incredible authentic food from northern China.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nobody that's doing that kind of food, even in major metropolitan areas. And we were there for 3 hours, and there was no
Mm-hmm.
one that came in.
Yeah.
And you know, when that was disturbing for us,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like looking at that, I'm like, you know, it's not stopping Italian places, and there's a ton of people from Italy that have
Mm-hmm.
the virus right now.
Yeah.
And it's like people are still going to Olive Garden, and then I think the rebuttal often is, yeah, but Olive Garden's not real Italian food. Well, neither is Happy Walk or wherever you go to get your takeout. So can we all calm
Yes.
down, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is unintentional and just subtle and subconscious. Like we don't even
Yeah,
realize that
absolutely.
we've placed assumptions. Like if I eat at this Chinese restaurant, I'm gonna get sick. Or if I
Right.
stand near that Chinese person, oh, you're Chinese or you're Asian, so you must be more susceptible to coronavirus. Or you coughed and you're Asian, you definitely have coronavirus, like stay away. Like, and
Right.
I can't even remember where I saw it, but I saw a video of this man start yelling at an Asian man in Target. Like, Target, come on, people,
Yeah.
because he was Asian. And
Gosh.
just like the anger. And that's like just a heart check opportunity too. Like, how are we, what like these moments bring out the best of us and the worst of us, and I think they also bring out a lot of things about us that are unknown, like we don't recognize
Absolutely.
it in the midst of busyness or other things that cover it up. And so this is just an opportunity for heart check in so many areas of our life, but including this, like how do we view people, and would it be different if it was of European,
Right.
like if it started in Europe, or what if it started in the United States? Like, you know, like these
Hmm.
things can happen. And so what does that look like?
Yeah.
Just for us to be aware
Hmm.
and
I
to,
love Matt's question. I think you should answer. How do you navigate students? How do you help new students navigate thinking differently through this conversation? I think that's an important question. Um, so, do you have any initial thoughts on that?
what thinking differently about what, Matt? Just
Yeah, that
about
can be,
racism?
or about the coronavirus specifically.
I think.
I think regarding at least some of the racism stuff, again,
Hmm.
representation matters, you know? And so I
Hmm.
think, you know, like I know growing up there, my youth pastors were all white dudes, and love them. They've impacted me deeply. But also, like, most youth pastors are white dudes, right? Most people in power in the church are white dudes. and and I think there's something to having different voices, to at least just to bring it up so it's a normal part of the conversation, you know, like, so that, you know, when they think about Asian people, it's not just Asian people. It's like, my pastor Katie is an Asian person. And I wouldn't talk about her like that, you know. I think that's a good starting place.
And I think personalizing it, like when Orange's theme last year was make it personal, and when it's personal it's different. And so, like, do you have a friend who's X, Y, or Z? And this could be a conversations about race, homosexuality, like it could be about whatever, but it changes. Like, all of the generalizations change when you know somebody. And so how can we be intentional about personalizing it with people, with our students? And I think a lot of times students adopt what is heard at home or is popular at school or is being repeated on the news. And so how can we just challenge that with a different mindset and language and be really intentional with what we're saying?
Absolutely.
And who we're inviting to the table. I really like that. Like, I try really hard to make sure that my youth leaders are really diverse. So whether or not it's your small group leader, you still see them every week. And so that's in age and gender and ethnicity and life experience and married, single. Like, I think it's just important for them to have people of influence in their life that are from all these different backgrounds. And I think that begins to change. Oh, yes. Insensitivity. Yeah. That, I think that there's so much that goes into that, but I think a lot of students just think before or speak before they think. And so just teaching them and being an example of how to pause and really think through, like, also the power of words. Like, oh, it's just a joke, I didn't mean it. Well, there's something inside of you that thought that it would be funny, and things are funny because they're a little bit true. And so like what's in your mindset that thinks that's true or think that that's funny, and is a laugh more important than someone's feelings? I think that's important too. So that's just like the power of words. Like, Proverbs says, 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death. And so we can give life and encourage people and shifts people's mindset like that, or we can just cut them down. And words sting for a really, really long time, unfortunately. And so there's something that was said a long time ago that would shift your entire perspective of yourself for years to come.
Yeah. I mean, I still hold on to, and I don't even mean that like I'm harboring it, but I can't forget the words that were first spoken to me, like, about my race and I was in first grade. And I'm like, those words are still so clear to me. And so I think we can't underestimate just the powerful words. And I love that. And I also think, like, for every single one of us out there, like, never forget the power of an apology. I think we model that, especially for younger people. And all of us will get things wrong. I don't know how many things I've said that have been insensitive and awful. And that's on me. But I think, and I can always remember the times I've had to apologize to students for things I've misspoken on, or I've said that were inappropriate. And just to own that. I think, like, we often live in a culture where it's really hard to say sorry, but I think if we can lead the way with apologies when we get it wrong, I think that's so important.
Yes. And I think Matt said honoring all peoples and cultures. Like, I think like being courageous enough to share, and then being courageous enough to ask questions. So Kellen is on here, or was on here. So Kellen's Black, he's my fiance, and I'm Japanese. And I've had Black friends, but I don't know a lot about Black culture. And so he's really good about sharing things with me, and I try to ask questions, and vice versa. Like, one day, we hung out in Little Tokyo in downtown LA, and that night we ended up in Baldwin Hills to see a movie, and there was like this African-American boutiques with like art and clothing and jewelry and like really, really cool. And it was I just thought after, like, what a cool contrast. And yet, like, we did like a deep dive into two different cultures. And I said, do you think people look at us funny, like, when we're walking around together in Little Tokyo or in this boutique area? And he was like, yeah, but whatever, you know, but so it's for those that have different cultures or different experiences, like being willing to share. And then for those
that's
that
a
are in
good
the
word.
majority culture, like being willing to ask questions and to humble yourself and have a conversation and say, like, tell me more about that, or tell me about your experience. I don't understand what that's like.
Yeah. And I think the key to that, if you are not a person of color, is asking without entitlement. Because I wonder with you, like, I know for me, it's hard for me to want to share my culture just to anybody, like, because that feels like such a deep-seated part of me. And I'm like, it's like a different kind of vulnerability. And so for me to share that with you, I'm like, I want you to be safe. And I can't, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I am like, I speak Cantonese. And so whenever people find that out, it's always like, well, say something in Chinese. And I'm like, I'm not a zoo animal. Like, you know, like, and I think there's something to like, no, like, tell me more. Like, I want to understand, and not just like commanding people to perform on what you want to see, what you want to know.
He said, how do you create a safe space to have dialogue, and what's worked well for honesty? I think setting boundaries on a conversation is important, especially when students are not disciplined enough to do that for themselves. And then,
or adults.
Right, true. I think what's worked well for honesty, I think being honest and vulnerable yourself first. So whether that's, hey, I don't understand this and I would really love to know, or like being honest. I'm answering this from Matt's perspective. So Matt is a white youth pastor. And so for you, Matt, to say like, hey, like, I'm white, I haven't experienced this, or I have experienced this in these areas, but I want to know more about your experience. Has anyone ever experienced a racist comment before? Has anyone ever experienced hurtful X, Y, and Z? Like, has, you know, like just opening that up for safe space. I think it's important to create that safe space through your own vulnerability first, whether that's humbling yourself to ask the question or whatnot. I also think it's important that those conversations are built on relationship, and so not asking like a new kid that comes to your ministry like, hey, tell me about this, like, and so I think it's just being really intentional about learning, and it's a process, and I think that's okay. Like, it's a process, and we're here for the long haul. Also, I just want to say, like, I'm gonna open up Christine to this, and to me too, that like, if you want to know more or ask questions, like, we'd love to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And it, like, I think starting with one person, having one really cool conversation opens up opportunities for more. And so, and then even just, I think you can address it from the stage, or you can have like your small group leaders share their own stories or experiences. I think that's really cool. So I love that we're talking about this. This is cool.
Yeah, this is so fun. I love everyone that's engaging
that,
too. Man. Yeah, thank you, everybody that's a part of this right now. Okay, we are like totally over on time, I guess. So I'm gonna skip a bunch of questions and just ask you, like, we can always come back. We can always have another conversation soon. Oh, this is a great question. Let's answer this and then we'll be done. How should someone deal with self-hatred in regards to race because of how they've been treated because of their race in the past? I think that's such a powerful question. I think, especially being Asian, I think the shame that's intertwined with our culture, and the shame that's intertwined of being a person of color in the States, I think that this is such a prevalent, and I think, like, for me, especially as I've explored this conversation over the last couple of years, I feel like a lot of my Asian friends that have grown up in this country, that's like a common experience of like, you don't like yourself because you're Asian. I remember in second grade, my biggest aspiration was to become white. And like, I just remember I was like, I just wish I could be white. And if I was white, then it would be better, you know? And
right. Isn't that interesting? I did too. Like, I wanted to be blonde with blue eyes.
Yes, me too.
Because that's what, like, when my friends was in preschool. So this is like way young.
Yeah.
And I didn't even like recognize it until years later. I was like, oh yeah, I used to want, and like, who aspires to be Asian as a 4-year-old?
No one.
Not many white kids, if at all.
Angel says same.
Yeah. And so I think it's hard because that's what's common. And that's even like beauty standard, all these things, which I think there are some people in the industry that are trying to shift that, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
Like I think Aerie does a really great job of body positivity and diversity in all these different areas. But going back to the part of self-hatred, I just think like in any area of your life, whether it's your ethnicity or fill in the blank, like there's so many reasons for self-hatred nowadays, or opportunities for that I think the world just throws at us. But just remembering that you're a child of God, like first and foremost, your identity. Like I don't walk around saying, hey, I'm an Asian, I'm Japanese, or I'm an Asian female, or I'm whatever, like that's a part of who I am, but that's not who I am. And just remembering first and foremost, like I'm a child of God. And then these other things make me really special and unique and different from the person next to me, and yet it doesn't define me. And allowing God's words to you define you instead of other people's words, because usually our self-hatred is formed because of other people's comments, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so just like being really intentional and filtering that, and having people who can speak truth, like that goes back to the power of words, like having people who encourage that and speak truth to you. That like, and it's so hard to fight against negativity. But yeah.
I think also just on a practical level, Angel, I would say like get involved in your culture. So if you're Chinese, if you're Vietnamese, if you're Korean, like if you have a big city near you where you can visit and go to Chinatown, go to Koreatown, go to Little Tokyo, whatever it is, and just like engage, eat the food. Like, and I think there's like two types of Asian people in America, right? There's people like me where I'm like, my parents are super Asian, you know, like I can still speak Cantonese, like that's it's deeply embedded in us. And there's still things where I'm like, I don't totally understand this, because all of my Asian experiences are wrapped up in my childhood and my family and growing up in the States. So I can't tell sometimes the difference between what's Chinese culture and what's just my weird family, you know, like I'm like, I don't know, it's all the same to me. But it's been so important. I think Angel, for me, this journey started, I think, like the last, I would say like late college, so last 5-ish years of just beginning to embrace and say like, man, like Chinese culture is amazing. Like even if I feel a lot of shame about it, like there's so much pride to be found in it. And so now I'm gonna learn, and I'm gonna ask questions, and I'm gonna eat more food and celebrate it on my Instagram, you know, like, because it's amazing. Like, and just like finding ways to be like, even if people say it smells weird, even if people don't get it, like it's not invalid, and it's beautiful, and it's important, and it adds something to the world, that just because the standard for our country isn't that doesn't mean it's not awesome, you know? And so I think any practical ways you can start leaning in and just like taking in your culture and learning about it and embracing it, like do it. And also Asian food is amazing. Doesn't really matter what country it's from. It's lit.
And I fall in the other category of Asian people. Like my family is quote unquote whitewashed, as people say, or like my brother went to UCLA, which is, and forgive me if this is racist, but an acronym, un-Caucasian, lots of Asians. Like there's so many Asian people at UCLA, but his friends say like, you're so white, you're so white. And there's like so many other comments, like being a banana, white on, or
yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
Right. And so I think there's just a lot of things being fourth generation that have been lost culturally or shifted to blend more with American culture. Or I would even say like my mom is from Hawaii, so Hawaiian culture, which is already a blend, or Southern California culture, which is its own beast. And so I fall into that other category, and I didn't strongly identify as Asian for a really, really long time. Like I knew, obviously I look this way, but I don't speak Japanese. I went to Japan in 2018 for the first time. So I was like in my late 20s.
But you're going for the Olympics.
Lord willing, we'll see what happens. But like my parents don't speak Japanese. Even like my grandparents speak a little bit, and they understand a little bit. But when they were kids during the war, and so they stopped speaking Japanese because there's so much racism against Japanese people. And so I think that like, but I've had to think through a lot, like, why did God make me this way? Like I could have been anything, and why did God make me Japanese? And what does he want to do in me as someone who's of Asian descent that he couldn't do if I were something else.
Yeah.
And also, I think like God could have made us all the same, and He made us so different. And even like Japanese culture versus Chinese culture versus Korean culture versus whatever, like Thai, like it's so different, even though we generalize that all as Asian. But even if you think of Europe, like German culture versus Italian culture, like it's so different. And that's such a beautiful thing. Like our God's such a creative God, and he values diversity.
Yeah.
Or learn to value that, and it's just like it's being intentional.
Yeah, that's good. Well, this went way longer than I thought, so let's end it real quick. But thank you everybody that joined in, and
Hi,
thank you for
Chelsea.
asking really thoughtful questions and for sharing your guys' thoughts. I really appreciated that. Let's end it on Katie. What are the 3 movies or shows that you would recommend for people to watch during quarantine?
Oh gosh, this is like the worst question for me because I'm not a TV person.
Okay, sorry, you're better than all of us.
I
Whatever.
no, I just like, so Kellen and I are watching through the Marvel movies. So we just did the first 2 Captain America movies. So we're gonna watch the 3rd one, I'm assuming sometime soon. Also I heard that you can rent Star Wars or buy Star Wars digitally, the newest one. So I only saw that once, so I'm definitely gonna watch that this weekend. I have to figure out how to get that first, but yes, I'm gonna watch that. And then what is that one we just watched? Next in Fashion. Go watch that.
Oh, that's such a good
Speaking
show.
of diversity,
That is such a good show. Let's go.
so good. It's really fun, and you can see just different cultural influences on these designers, and it's incredible. I cried at the end. Like,
oh, me too. Me
I don't
too.
know, I just did, and it
Me
was so
too.
beautiful. So, go watch that. That's an easy one to watch and just, yeah, binge through it, I guess. But I'm about that. So yeah, go watch
Okay,
that one.
Mish, leave me alone. Stop bullying me.
Yeah, she
All
does.
right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And tomorrow we'll be on with John and Steph Cassetto talking about online church and navigating worship ministry during this time. So peace
Awesome.
out.
Hey,
Thanks,
thanks,
Katie.
Christine. You're awesome.
You're awesome. Bye.
Bye.